Hello everyone and welcome to BearNews as we take a look at a brand new strategy game that will be released in early access in 2021. Lost Eidolons is a turn-based tactical RPG released by Ocean Drive Studio. The game displays some incredible art direction as well as some absolutely phenomenal graphics. As it stands, the game is currently set for release on PC and Xbox, though they have made suggestions that other platforms are being considered. Atop this, the game is currently set to support 7 different languages, with English and Korean being the 2 we will see in these videos, though other languages are yet to be determined. No doubt as they are awaiting completion of the fully voice-acted cutscenes. The game has both a strong industry and community backing, having initially been fully funded before then opening a Kickstarter to implement stretch goals, and has already had a timed demo release over on the Steam Next Festival, with the team working hard to debug and improve balancing. Now, if you were lucky enough to play the game during the demo period, do make sure to go check out their Twitter page as they put up various challenges for players and even wrote about it on their dev blog, congratulating the winners who succeeded in completing them. From screenshots to strategic challenges, Ocean Drive has already tested their playing base and not found them wanting, and have even stated that they're looking forward to holding even more contests for their community in the future. And the team has been running a consistent Q&A every month over on Twitch, so if you ever want to know more or ask a few questions about the game, then please pop over there because they are open to any question from the community. So with all that said, just what is Lost Eidolons? The game describes itself as a strategy turn-based RPG set within a Western fantasy world, with this world currently set in the state of a civil war. The RPG and strategy mechanics within this game are incredibly in-depth, with multiple features interacting at pretty much all points throughout the game, providing plenty of customization for your playstyle. And this level of complexity is not lost upon the world building itself, with a history dedicated to not only the current state of affairs, but also the way in which the world was created and the rise and fall of the Eidolons themselves. 4 elemental beings of pure energy now lost to the world, though their power lingering on within a chosen human vessel. Now, with such a heavy story focus, the game does not provide the option for complete character customization. In fact, the physical features and backstory of every character is predetermined, though this has done little to limit the amount of customization available to you. Taking a look at Ballastar's status window, we can see the current experience of the character themselves, their proficiency within their class, the various stats which build up their status, as well as a complete breakdown of the equipment at their disposal, including the primary and secondary loadout they will be going into battle with, the armor they have adorned, the book of magic they're currently using, as well as accessories, mounts, and any consumables that they may currently have on their possession. Now, it is slightly obscured by their logo. If we look behind, we can see that even though a character may hold a spellbook, they can only be used by magic-related classes. And something to bear in mind when using these spellbooks is that they are actual books you will be adding spells to. That is to say, it is not the character that can use the spell, but the book that allows them, meaning that you can customize those books to your preference and move them between characters, allowing new units access to brand new spells. As we focus in on the equipment itself, we get a nice breakdown of what kind of stats or skills the weapon currently has. Now, all of this plays into the insanely in-depth combat mechanics available in this game, which we'll be getting to soon. Of course, being an RPG, all your characters will come with the potential to gain skills. And as we can see on Ballastar, we have a breakdown of class skills and character skills, meaning you will have multiple pools of skills to draw from, as well as different masteries applied to each, with, for example, his leather armor mastery being at level 2. Not only are you leveling up your character, your class, and even proficiency in weaponry, but also the skills themselves. The sheer quantity of leveling in this game really lends itself to that character customization. You are going to be able to tailor each and every single character to any build you wish, drawing upon multiple options and experiences to better promote them to work towards your playstyle. And this is best seen within their selection of character classes. Units within the game are able to, and I quote, advance through a tree of classes that employ different types of skills or magic to leverage victory in battle. Now, something that's quite interesting is that in order to change jobs, at least to one your unit has not had before, they will need to wait for a Unity ceremony. This ceremony can only be performed outside of missions, and they've also stated that initially the access to this ceremony will be limited, meaning that at least initially you will have to learn to make do with the classes and roles of the units you have, before later on in the campaign the game becoming more accessible, all done within an attempt to not overload players with the sheer potential variance of characters within the game. prompting players to focus more on refining their strategy and engage with the game's mechanics while developing an idea of how they'll specialize later on. So if we come over to their trailers, we can see we can change the apparel of our characters even if we can't change their physical appearance itself, with each armor set showing its own unique styles, ranging from hide-clad barbarians through to the sheer protection of full plate. Though interestingly, a genuine lack of helmets can be noticed. No doubt this is simply for points of reference, allowing you to identify characters quickly, as well as promoting more of a personal relation with the characters, given you'll be able to see their faces, thus humanizing them, though I for one certainly have no problem with gaining an attachment to an ironclad character. The fate of the Knight of Astora still weighing heavily upon my conscience. Character customization, progression, and recruitment will all take place in what Ocean Drive is referring to as their outgame. Whenever your forces are not out on a mission, you'll find yourself in the world's many encampments and outposts. Now what's really good to note here is that they have said that if you're finding a mission too difficult, then you'll be able to use these outposts to re-equip and re-strategize before going back at them, suggesting that these will also act as your main save points, allowing you to retry missions should you fail. And considering in their stretch goals they may be bringing in permadeath, this could be very useful to those players who absolutely refuse to lose their characters and will fight against it at any means. For anyone who's played any of the Fire Emblem series, then you're going to be fully comfortable with the idea of losing characters throughout missions and the potential requirement to restart each mission should you fail to keep them alive. It actually will be great to see this option brought into the game, as it can definitely lead to a lot of fun, particularly when combined with an Iron Man mode to force you to continue even having lost your favorite character. Though given the heavy story focus, I really do hope this is entirely optional, as it could well prevent players from seeing everything the game has to offer. But one of the things you'll be able to ensure you do not lose your characters is meet the many merchants available throughout each of these encampments. Here you'll be able to sell and buy resources to just clear out space in your inventory, or even get your hands on some vastly superior equipment. And I will note from their dev blog that there are 3 types of merchants included in the game. These will provide equipment, consumables, or rare barterers. Now the fact that these are rare straight away tells you these will have some incredible equipment on them should you be able to track them down. But we also have a note that we should check with merchants often, as they may well be able to procure new items or equipment on their own. There's not really much information on exactly how the economy of the world works, but it is good to note that returning to merchants may well yield new equipment, so it is still worth doing so. The one thing to pay very close attention to is an additional outgame resource. This is your leadership, and you will need to spend it throughout camps to make various actions. Though most importantly, this is a finite resource that does not replenish until you enter a new episode's camp for the first time, meaning once you've spent it, you will actually have to progress the story in order to gain more. And arguably more importantly, leadership will not carry over to the next camp, so you should always make sure to spend every last bit you have so as not to waste any before you move on. And the dev team has even given some hints that there are methods of increasing the maximum leadership and ways to regenerate it too. Now the key way they've suggested you'll be spending this leadership is to improve your bearing amongst your troops by taking part in unit skill training, improving the affinity with characters, which links further into this RPG system, where each character will have a different affinity towards each other. And it will be important to keep track of and garner relationships that you prefer, so as to improve the combat abilities of the units included, but also unlock new potential recruits, taking new units into your forces and expanding your military prowess. It may well set off special events. Essentially, you will need to spend a fair bit of time in your outgame moving around the camp and spending your leadership wisely. And as this is a finite resource, you will need to spend long and hard thinking about which characters you wish to spend it on. So make sure to spend some time getting to know them, visiting them, dining with them, giving them gifts, amongst many other mechanics which can be used to learn about the character, unlock side stories, improve their relations, and even seek to fulfill their various ambitions. And just before we move on, I will note that your camp will expand. Now this is said to happen naturally as you progress through the game, but it will allow you not only to physically expand it, but also unlock new facilities so as to gain more bonuses and more potential to customize your characters and develop them as you progress throughout the game. And finally, we come to the combat. Ocean Drive's provided plenty of information on the sheer depth to complexity of the many mechanics at play within the game. And with all this going on at once, I'm actually quite thankful that Last Eidolons has gone for a phased-based gameplay. That is to say that the entirety of your force will act before AI allies and finally the enemy get their turns to play, with each of these phases being completed before one round can end and the next begin. Essentially, all this is doing is removing the consideration of initiative, though in its place, they've put plenty more to consider. For starters, when attacking the enemy, they will be able to counter. Now, counters only do half damage, and only award half the normal experience to the units themselves, meaning that not only will you have to worry about the enemy fighting back, but also you'll need to worry about defeating the enemy with a counter attack, as you will not gain the full experience bonus from that victory. But aside from attacking, you can also use your singular action to use your skills, items, incant magic, exchange your items in storage, defend, or simply wait. Now, I should note that you can move before making one of those actions. However, once you have used an action, you cannot then move. There is a strict order to the way in which you do these. It's a good thing to note as it makes retreat significantly more difficult as you're unable to hit and run, instead subtly changing the game to be a little more aggressive as you are forced to run then hit. Now, just as before, the developers have stated there are certain commands that can be used that won't affect your actions, such as swapping between primary and secondary weapons or mounting and dismounting your horse, as well as the potential for special context actions such as opening chests or interacting with the environment in some way. Now, though this is strictly speaking a limiting factor preventing players from doing so much in a single turn, it does enforce the need for strategic considerations and tactical approaches to each problem, forcing you to be efficient in how you go about moving on the battlefield, minimizing retaliation and maximizing the gain from each of your actions. And these considerations also expand to your character. Certain skills will be linked to specific character classes as well as specific weaponry, meaning once more you'll have to organize your customization of characters to incorporate these different skills into your loadouts. And this includes magic users, which do require their spellbook with the skill inscribed in order to cast it. And that's only looking at active skill bases. There are of course plenty of passive skills included, meaning experimentation is going to go a long way into how you develop your characters throughout the game. Trying out entirely different loadouts with different weaponry, armor, skill sets to give you the most advantage in each mission. And something that I just think is incredibly cool is the inclusion of mounts. Now, as with all other aspects of the game, they come with their advantages and disadvantages, providing players with additional movement, power, physical attack, and the ability to move after performing actions, though this comes with an increased vulnerability and a reduction in options in regards to passing certain terrain, meaning out on the open fields, they're going to be incredibly powerful, yet coming up into forests or even going up into the mountains, it may be an idea to release this saddle. Now, inevitably, as you're fighting your enemies and completing these missions, you are going to be gaining experience, not only leveling up your character, but also improving their class mastery and proficiency as you do, with potential bonuses added in for completing scenarios quickly, as well as when engaging against higher level targets. But a little addition they've thrown in is the use of a supporter system. They haven't declared exactly when this will become available, however, you will be able to select a unit to act as a support in combat for a specific character. Now, they must be a lower level and class grade than the character they're attached to, however, it will allow them to gain experience. Now, this experience will be halved in regards to their proficiency and their class, though it will remove them from combat itself, meaning that they'll be able to train themselves up without exposing themselves to the dangers of the battlefield. Something that I imagine mid to late game is going to be extremely useful to try and get some of those new characters leveled up and on par with the others without needing to ensure you're keeping units around them, keeping them healthy and away from danger. The support system also integrates into the outgame training, allowing you to raise all your characters even if they didn't get into combat, or even focus down on specific ones you prefer. We'll have to wait and see exactly how this works in the game, but theoretically it does sound like a good solution for getting your units to all be of equal strength and preventing any of them from becoming redundant. Now, as if everything you've heard hasn't sounded quite amazing enough, we're now going to look at something that will really set this game out, showing off its potential if it does succeed in what it plans to do, and this is the ability to manipulate the battlefield. Following on from the Eidolons' namesake, elemental magic is going to play a large part in the game, by actually leaving lasting effects on the characters and tiles on which it's cast. The examples they give are tiles that are on fire inflict damage to units who start their turn on them. Water can then be used to douse the fire, turning it back into a normal tile. Though if you use poison mist upon the fire, the mist will be set ablaze, resulting in an explosion. Now this, in the heat of battle, is going to be extremely useful, turning residual fire tiles or even aspects of the environment already containing fire into potential explosive AoEs. There are other ways to synergize all of these elemental effects, though it really does well to open the game up to the possibilities you have in combat, and really gains from the fact that you'll be able to freely change characters between classes you've unlocked for them, meaning you'll be able to change things up before you enter a mission to take the most advantage of the terrain available, or even switch characters around so as to work better, creating more AoEs to take out larger numbers of enemies before switching them back to heavy DPS units should you then have to take on the larger armored foes later on. Now, something I would like to bring up that they haven't given too much in the way of detail on outside of their streams is that there will not be a weapon triangle within this game. Instead, they are focusing more on weaponry versus armor, with different armor being more effective against different weapons and vice versa, with armors ranging from cloth through to plate. And as if that wasn't enough, there's also a camaraderie bonus during battle, meaning you'll be able to bring units together so as to support each other, pulling off greater and greater feats as you do so. The game sells itself as an isometric turn-based strategy title, but with more of a modern style, updating the game to the modern gen. And I've got to say that their environmental considerations are absolutely on point. Watching these characters pulling off a siege in a turn-based strategy game is something I honestly didn't think I'd see in the modern gen. The sight of units climbing up onto the ramparts to fire down on their foes while using battering rams to crash through the walls and get up close and personal, the labyrinthian construction of their defenses really putting some pressure onto the assault. Now, out on mission, you'll be using an isometric grid so as to fight your opponents. However, when you're in an encampment, you'll be using a free roam system to move around and interact with all the characters under your command. As you're going about recruiting, you'll be able to gain an additional 30 plus potential new fighters to your forces, so it is definitely going to be worth visiting the many NPC camps throughout the world. And there you have it, Lost Eidolons coming to early access soon. So what do you think? Which characters are you looking forward to playing with most? And just how many of them do you think will fall for not wearing a helmet? I'd love to hear what you guys think. But till then, as always, peace out.